right, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's December 16th. Thank you for joining us today for the NorCal College Access and Success Convening. All right, let me make sure we're all ready to go. First, let's just start off with some quick housekeeping. We're so excited you decided to spend your Wednesday evening with us. We've got a jam-packed program in store for you. So just want to encourage you to please go ahead and use speaker mode when folks are speaking. You can update to gallery mode when you want to see who's with us today. We encourage you to please go ahead and rename yourself so that you can add your company and your city next to it. So we know where folks are coming from. We encourage you to please use the chat to post questions, send your love, engage with other people that are here. This will be recorded and it will be available on YouTube by early next week, if not sooner, as well as emailed as a follow-up to all registrants. So now to lead us into our event, it's my great pleasure to introduce our MC for today, Mr. Khafre J. Khafre hails from Hunters Point, San Francisco, and his activism is deeply rooted in real communities dealing with real issues. As the founder and executive director of Hip Hop for Change Incorporated, Khafre is experienced in merging activism and expressive cultural arts. He uses hip hop culture to educate and advocate for social justice in the Bay Area and has impacted the world by employing almost 1,000 people in his communities, creating a modular curriculum to focus on healthy expression and a positive identity, and by working with over 22,000 K-12 youth to create healthier places for children to foster their creative and positive identity. Today, Khafre is here to foster our creative and positive identities as adults, advocates, professionals, and champions in the college access and success space. So with that, I now hand it over to Khafre to facilitate today's ceremonies. You're on mute, Khafre.
Great way to start it off. Welcome. Thank you, Mayor, for inviting me. It was great to learn first off that we both share our history in hip hop culture and empowering educators and practitioners. So that's really awesome. I said yes to coming on board with this because I'm a Black man from Hunters Point, San Francisco. I know coming up through City College was transformative for me. It opened up my possibilities, and being a Black man with a name like Khafre, being able to put degrees next to those names is so important. So anything that can help young kids, kids of color, low-income kids get on the right track towards gaining knowledge, I am down for. So I'm really happy to be here. Today's event is brought to you by the Northern California College Promise Coalition and the Bay Area College Success Network to offer promise, access, and success programs for professionals with the space to convene, connect, and coalesce around a shared vision of our work in 2021. We have an amazing panel of leaders in the field, which I'll introduce shortly, followed by a networking breakout session starting a little after 5. And we'll conclude with a raffle. Yes, we have prizes for everybody there, for everyone here, and our community board where folks will be able to share resources following today's event. To kick off our afternoon together, I invite the Northern California College Promise Coalition to lead sponsoring organizations to say a few words. To get us started, let me introduce to you David Silver, Chair of the Steering Committee, and Meredith Curry, Leader and Manager of the Coalition. Let's send them some love in the chat, please, folks.
All right.
David. Oh,
well, you're on, David.
Welcome. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm seeing like 7,500 people coming together in a vision of hope. I think all of us came together today because we have a belief that the way that it is right now in our society is not the way it should be, and that we can together create a system where every single kid in our region is able to truly access college, career, and their dreams. As we go forward, I think we all know too that we are working hard in our own sections, but we cannot do this alone. Today, you're going to be reminded about our common vision, but also have an opportunity to connect with teammates, with partners in this fight for equity. If you're inspired by today, or you gain some tools to transform systems and have more opportunities for your kids, then I invite you to become a part of our team as a member of the Northern California College Promise Coalition and or the Bay Area CSN, our partner for today's event. Mayor and our facilitators will share more of how to do this as we go forward. Just a little bit of history, and then I want to share a few recognitions as well. When we co-founded the coalition with the mayor's office, along with steering committees members like San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland Promise, Richmond Promise, Stockton Scholars, 10,000 Degrees, Making Waves, and many more, we knew that we were creating something that could have a profound impact on our region. But it's not just about our region, it's about making impact across this state and across this country for all people in need. As we go forward together, we might feel isolated at times, but we are all connected by this vision of making sure every student, regardless of their income, has a true opportunity to pursue their dreams. I want to shout out a couple people. First of all, we have about 40% of our over 100 registrants and over 100 organizations that are from the Bay Area, but we also have 60% from across the state and the country. And I believe that we have people that are on a national level that are here too. So just to put it out there, I want to see kind of who's in the room and give some shout outs. So first, I want to say a thank you to Martha Cantor and her fantastic team at the College Promise, who has been the trailblazer of this as we've gone forward for many years before. Also, a shout out to West Contra Costa Education Fund, our fiscal sponsor, the advisory board member, Michael Drake, who is the Dr. Michael Drake is the University of California's new president and has recently joined our advisory board. A shout out to partners at UC like Vice President Yvette Gullatt, who's our panelist today. And you'll learn more about Yvette's amazing work. Thank you also to Sandra Williams-Hamp, the ED, as well as Sean Brick from UCOP. Then we've recently entered into an agreement with them to make sure that we can leverage our impact together for kids. I also want to give a shout out to President Leroy Morishita from Cal State East Bay and his team, Dr. Suzanne Espinoza, Andrea Wilson, Maureen Scharberg, all the different people at Cal State East Bay who we recently made an agreement with as well that we're hoping to leverage. Shout out to California Endowment, one of our key funders here. Also Mia Banta and Samra from Oakland Promise, Patrice Berry from the mayor's office, Lang and Janae from Reinvent Stockton, Jenny Lamb and Aaliyah from San Francisco's mayor's office, and many, many more that we have here as well. From Students Rising Above, Jesse from Richmond Promise, Tracy from 10,000 Degrees, Melissa from Making Waves, and a big thank you to Stupsky Foundation, Ed Trust West, ECMC, Marin Community Foundation, San Francisco Ed Fund, and Tipping Point for being key funders that are with us today. Last but not least, in order to make things go, we need a movement and we need leaders. And one of those leaders is our coalition leader, who has done an incredible job and helped since November, partnering with Bay Area CSN to make this vision a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I hand it over to the coalition leader, Mayor Curry.
Hello, folks. Thank you so much to you, David, especially. I just want to actually, hold on, I need to update what I'm clicking on. But David, without your leadership and vision, this coalition wouldn't exist. And you've really empowered me and given me the tools to drive. So thank you so much. I join you in thanking our steering committee, all of which share in the governance of the Northern California College Promise Coalition and have mentored and supported me every step of the way. It's encouraging to know that most of you have already recommitted for the 2021 fiscal year. In addition to the steering committee, NCCPC's members includes champion organizations and advocate individual members. They support our goals around policy, campus partnerships, workforce opportunities, and communities of practice by engaging in our committees and our ad hocs. So thank you to all of our champions, especially to those who are here with us today, like Megan Taylor of Scholar Match, Jacqueline Babcock at the Foundation for College Education, and Christina from the Peninsula College Fund. And we'd love to thank our advocates, Lorna Contreras Townsend and Spada Viveros Walton, who will be facilitating a breakout with us. They were also original co-founders of the coalition. A quick note on policy. I and two of our member students were selected as NCCAN Federal Advocacy Fellows this year. So shout out to Elishba Sardar and Mackenzie Gill, who join us today as our student fellows. Also, as David mentioned, we are developing campus partnerships and are so excited to be joined today by more of our friends. A special shout out to Don Hunt, Associate Vice Chancellor of UC Davis, Claudio Morales, Interim Executive Director of UC Berkeley's Center for Educational Partnerships, and Sonia Ramos, Interim Director for PT Partnerships for CalSoap Talent Search at UC Santa Cruz. Thank you for joining us, David O'Brien, Vice Chancellor at the California Community College Chancellor's Office. And a thank you again to April Gromo, System-Wide Director of Enrollment Managers for the California State University Chancellor's Office, who partnered with us earlier this year. So as we get ready for the event, a huge thank you again to our panelists who are going to start off and kick off our event. Dr. Yvette Gullatt of the UC Office of the President, Catalina Cifuentes of Riverside County Office of Education and CSAC and NCCAN, and Alison Lucca of the Southern California College Access Network. Lastly, this event wouldn't be possible without our event coordinator, Abby Friedman, and we sponsor this event in partnership with the Bay Area College Success Network. I'll now turn it over to Kevin Snyder of the Bay Area CSN Steering Committee to say a few words. Please give Kevin and the Bay Area CSN some love in the chat.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you again for all the work and the time and just the thought partnership that's gone into making this event come together. And we're so grateful to be here, and I'm so grateful to be here as a representative of the Bay Area College Success Network Steering Committee. As some of you may know, the CSN is a community of Bay Area organizations providing support to college and workforce-bound youth across the Bay. We've been working since 2004, which predates my time with the CSN, but we've been working since then to share best practices, engage in discussion around regional policy, and build opportunities to collaborate. It's so great to see some of our partner and members in attendance today. I'm seeing First Graduate, Mission Graduates, SMART, and a few other orgs, just to name a few. So again, we're so grateful to be here with you all today. And I also want to particularly thank our facilitators for this afternoon's breakout sessions, who will be getting full introductions later on, but specifically John Tamrat, Melissa Fries, Tiana Corona, Marcelo Duran, Maribel Rodriguez, Sabede Viveros Walton, and serving as both a facilitator and leader for our opening and closing mindfulness activities today, Adelina Tancioco. Thank you all so much for lending your time and expertise to make this event happen today. Finally, before passing it back to our amazing MC, I'd like to extend a special thanks to you, Khafre, for being here today and facilitating and creating this space for us all. So really looking forward to working with you all today, and yeah, I'll pass it back to you.
Right on, Kevin. And thank you, Mayor, and David, for your leadership with coalitions here in the Bay Area and for providing an incredible space for us today. Before we dive into our panel discussion, we're going to take a few minutes to ground ourselves in the present moment and the beauty of this community coming together this afternoon. To lead us in an opening, I'd like to introduce you to Adelina Tancioco. Adelina Tancioco is trained as a therapist, restorative justice practitioner, coach, and intuitive healer. Prior to founding her business, Surrendered Healing, she used to work in schools in Union City, Oakland, and Alameda. Hats off. Utilizing all those tools, she founded Surrendered Healing, a company that specializes in supporting women of color and claiming their worth and embracing their gifts without having to shrink, compromise their values, or throw away their dreams. Adelina loves nature so much, she once in high school dressed up as Mother Nature for Halloween, and she's still not lived it down. Her family's teasing her today for it. So to bring that love, creative spirit, and affirming energy to this space, let's welcome Adelina. Everybody, please show her some love in the chat. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Whew, I don't know about y'all, but I feel so hyped. This is like the most hyped I felt in a long time. This is a virtual event, but there's just so many amazing folks here. I could feel the energy and just listening to all of the introductions here. So really excited. I'm honored to be here. And like Khafre said, we're going to just ground for a moment. So I invite you to go ahead and get into a comfortable position with your feet either flat on the ground or cross-legged. Gently close your eyes or take a look down. And let's start by taking 3 deep conscious breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. So take a deep breath in and out and in and out. This time, go ahead and sigh it out. So take a deep breath in. And out. Bringing your attention now to gratitude. Gratitude for the day. Gratitude for each person here on this call. For every person that made this happen. And gratitude for yourself for having chosen to be here. There are so many things you could have been doing, and yet you chose to be here in this moment, building community, learning, sharpening your craft, connecting, networking. And now taking a moment to just check in with yourself. There's so many things going on in the world, and it's important to just take a moment to see, how are you right now? Our bodies, our spirit is always talking to us, but we're not always listening. So go ahead and ask aloud, letting your body really feel the question. How am I? How am I doing? Feeling compassion for yourself or whatever came through. Taking a moment to just send yourself extra love. And now connect with your intention. What was your intention for having shown up to this gathering? What is it that you'd like to receive? What is it that you'd like to give? And now, who do you need to be in order to receive or give that? Do you need to be someone who's open and authentic? Do you need to be someone who's curious? Do you need to be someone who's in a private space, who shuts the door, or who has a glass of water and a pen and paper there? Whatever the case is, go ahead and commit to being that right now. Nice. Now, as we come to a close for this grounding, I just want to invite you to do a practice that I learned from a curandera and a Korean American activist named Alison Wu, which is to call your spirit back from where you may have left it. We sometimes leave our spirit in the car or at the grocery store or with others. And healing and transformation happens in the present tense. So we want to call ourselves back from everywhere we may have left it by claiming your name and your presence. So you're going to say, I am, and then your full name, and I am here. So I'll demonstrate. I am Adelina Nicole Tancioco, and I am here. There's a few of you who haven't done it yet, and I just invite you to go ahead and do it. It really works. You'll feel the difference. Nice. Taking one more deep, selfish breath in, smiling as you do it. Bring your hands to your heart now. And so it is. Opening your eyes when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Adelina. I feel grounded. I need to bring some of this mindfulness to my 2-year-old as well, so I'm gonna hold on to that for after this. We're now gonna move into our keynote panel, and we have an all-star lineup for you folks of leaders here with us this afternoon. First, I wanna introduce Dr. Yvette Gullatt. She's president of graduate, undergraduate, and equity affairs and vice provost for equity, diversity, and inclusion at the University of California Office of the President. I need a title like that one day. She has more than 20 years of experience in student affairs, diversity, and institutional equity leadership. Dr. Gullatt joined the Office of the President in 1999 as a system-wide director for early and immediate outreach, and has served in a variety of system-wide leadership positions since that time. Dr. Gullatt has launched key initiatives to expand UC's role in public education, including data systems that help schools improve UC and CSU eligibility rates in partnerships with K-12 schools, California higher education institutions, and community-based organizations to improve academic preparation for more first-generation low-income and underrepresented students. Please welcome Dr. Gullatt. Send some love in the chat, please. Next is Catalina Cifuentes. Is the executive director of college and career readiness for the Riverside County Office of Education, commissioner and chair for CSAC, the California Student Aid Commission, and board member of NCCPC, the National College Attainment Network. Early in her career, Catalina worked as a high school counselor and designed a successful guidance program which garnered regional and state recognition for exemplary counseling practice, resulting in the highest graduation rate and second highest AG completion rate in Riverside, Inyo, Mono, and San Bernardino County. As a first-generation college graduate, Catalina strives to show the impact that can be made when educators have high expectations for all students and when they pursue their post-secondary dreams, regardless of the odds against them. Please welcome Catalina Cifuentes and give it up for her in the chat. And last but not least, Alison DeLuca, Executive Director of SoCalCAN, the Southern California College Access Network. Since 2005, Alison has worked with more than 100 organizations to expand access and completion for low-income students in the region. The network plays an important role in the field by bringing together direct service organizations to exchange effective practices, addressing existing service gaps, and weigh in on policies and practices that help or hinder students' abilities to smoothly reach their goal of college graduation. Alison has worked on social change issues in both the US and Central America for more than 20 years in women's, environmental, and immigrant rights fields. She's a proud graduate of the Women's Policy Institute, California Education Policy Fellowship, and Southern California Leadership Network. Please welcome Alison DeLuca. Give her some love in the chat, please. It is great to connect with family in Southern California, y'all. So is everybody ready? Can you hear me, folks?
Yes, we can hear you.
Ready.
Awesome.
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Well, let's get into the conversation then. For everyone in the audience, you're invited and you're welcome and encouraged to chat through the panel. We'll have questions and answers, a time for that at the end, and we'll be taking questions from the chat. So please put any questions that you might have in there and Mayor will get them out for us. So ready for the panel. The first question is, what is an example of regional coalition building that you're doing right now? What does that effort take? What do you need from us? And despite the challenges in the work, why are these partnerships so critical, especially now? Let's start with Yvette.
Sure, thank you. It's good to see everyone. I feel so grounded. That was wonderful. So one thing about the University of California is that we have a commitment to regional partnership, and it manifests itself in regional partnership or educational partnership centers on every campus. This was an effort that we began in the early 2000s, and we have only grown and expanded these efforts over time. So I'm really happy to see in the Zoom Claudia Morales, who helps lead that work at Berkeley, Angel Max Guerrero, who helps lead that work at San Francisco. And the point of these centers is to help bring about systems level change in schools and districts. Let me talk about Merced, our Center for Educational Partnerships at UC Merced, which works with schools in the Central Valley, San Joaquin Valley, to utilize information that they get. They're very data-centered program. Information from assessments that students take to help support teachers in how they understand and help accommodate student learning from assessment. So very data-driven type of approach. Our Berkeley program has created and developed an innovation that we've now been able to expand to multiple campuses called the Destination College Advising Corps, which places near-peer college advisors in our local schools, creating the next generation of college counselors and administrators and teachers. So my takeaway is that universities are a hub and a site for partnership, and that you can reach into the University of California to access those kinds of resources.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Catalina.
No, thank you for having me, and it's great to see so many familiar faces. I'm gonna say now more than ever, we need each other, and we don't have time or resources to reinvent the wheel. And so I could not do the work we're doing now without these types of partnerships and commitments from the different regions and primarily our higher education partners. So for example, UC Riverside, and I know Dr. Gullatt's gonna love to hear this, UC Riverside is huge and integral partner because we have data sharing, because we have partnership. They're able to give me, data. For example, last week, we knew we had about 9,000 applications that had not been submitted across our county with all of our districts that are on California colleges. We track college application completion through California colleges, some know it as CCGI. We knew we had 9,000, we knew who they were, but we needed more live up-to-date data, not just primarily for UCR because we were working on the extension UCRs, but also for our transfer students. So through this partnership, we were able to get who have started the application for not only our K-12 schools, but also our community colleges. So we not only phone banked hundreds of students in K-12, we phone banked transfer students as well. That's key. So that's not just, meetings and conversations, that's work in action. And I think that just goes to our students right now need as many supports and as many opportunities for people connecting with them. So we've been talking in our county, we just got a new CalSOP program, and our new CalSOP director, Matthew Elders, on this webinar as well. We're learning so much about just how we need to work closer together and share the work. And what's happened is before the pandemic, text messaging and all that was innovation. And students would get engaged. Now that's all they get is text messaging and emails, and they need that human touch. So the text messaging and all that, it's okay, but there's nothing like picking up the phone and calling a student and saying, okay, what's going on? What happened? Why haven't you submitted to UCR? You have a 3.9. And we can't do this work and be that intentional and data-driven without those types of partnerships. So like I said, I can't say enough about UC Riverside and what we're doing.
Wow, great to hear. Alison.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see all of you. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I too feel very grounded. So thank you for those exercises at the beginning. And I think I would just start by underscoring what Catalina just said about, really now more than ever, we really need to have student-centered networked action. And really, there's no single organization, no single institution, no single leader, no single website that's going to be able to address the wide-scale challenges that we're all experiencing across our various regions. So it requires all of us. And I know when I was doing that grounding activity, I was really just thinking about what are the respective strengths that everybody on this line has, our experiences, our expertise, our access to students. There's tremendous power on this line today. And so, in terms of the most pertinent regional example, I guess what first came to mind is just the work that SoCalCAN has launched in the last several months in an effort called Let's Go to College, California. And it really was our network's response to how do we come together as college access and success professionals to better support our students as they're trying to navigate college during COVID and having to make really big and difficult decisions when they're not tethered to their counselor So, I think what we're most proud about, in this regional effort is it's student-led. So we're really putting our students in the driver's seat to determine what it is that they need. And it's field informed. So we're tapping into all of our members and colleagues across the state to try to figure out what is the information, the resources that we have that we can join together and be able to support them. And I think we're learning a tremendous amount about what that means for our region. What does it mean for us to reach out to other sectors and work across sectors? What does it mean to reach out to the public sector and talk with our mayor's office and, our institutions of higher ed and really say, now it is the time that we need to put any sort of organizational interests aside and show up for our students and stand behind them through this. We know that all regions are different. And so that's why we really value regional collaboration, because the real work happens in communities and our respective regions. And if you do any work in California, it's really difficult to talk about our work statewide because each region has its own nuances. And so I'm so excited about today's convening because it's exciting to see the NorCal region come together, but also to see other colleagues across the state and the country.
Awesome. I'm inspired right now. Y'all are very powerful voices. So I'm really, really happy that we're creating this space for y'all to speak. So the next question, can you share some examples of how taking a deep dive into data has helped your organization identify inequities and work to address them? I know, Catalina, you kind of got into some of this, but if you can name one metric that you feel folks might not be tracking as much as they should be, what would that be? And how would you encourage folks to track and use that metric?
So what we're finding is, like I mentioned earlier, our students are, what we're noticing right now, let me give an example. What worked traditionally is not working now. So we would say we have college application workshops from 1 to 4. And we're once again expecting the students to come. We're expecting the students to show up. And it's really, when you're the community and the students we're serving, a majority of us on this call, first generation, first in their family, low income, they missed out on so much in the spring of their junior year, right? They didn't get all the college, match and fit, and they didn't get that, right? And then we're starting again. Some of them haven't even met who their counselor is. They've never met their teachers in person. And so they need that validation. So I had a student yesterday, she had a 3.9, wasn't going to apply. And so our coaches kind of flag, okay, this is one that, Mrs. Cifuentes has to call to follow up on, and maybe we can convince her to apply to UCR or in Cal States. And so long story short, 10 minutes into the conversation, I knew she was afraid of failure. She was afraid to submit. She was afraid of, it's easier to get out of the game and just default to say, I'll just take a year off, or I'll just won't apply, than it is to still stay in, because she missed out so much of that. So what we're doing is very intentional, very data driven. If we can't measure it, we shouldn't be doing it. And I think there's a few key things, depending on what the problem always is, who has access to the data, how do you get access? I'm going to say what we're using right now, the biggest platform that has been the game changer has been California colleges for us. Because if our students launch and use California colleges to their CSU, their UC app, we get immediate feedback of where they're at, if they submitted, if they've applied, if they're in progress. So we take all that demographic data and we drop in all this different data sets and to see where our students are. So we take the California Student Aid Commission data. So we run all those reports, drop them in, and something as simple as, you don't have to buy a program, you don't have to buy something, you can use Google Sheets. And our council director, Matt Elder, is on the line. And if you want to shoot him Matt, put your email in the chat, and you can maybe do a demo later on another day to show how we're doing that, how you're doing that. So we're taking the two biggest pieces, and if you don't have it, at least you have is financial aid, the California Student Aid Commission data, dropping in their FAFSA. We all know that's the number one reason why our students don't enroll and persist, is paying for school. And the Student Aid Commission has done a lot of research already on, I think almost over 70% of our students in college now have faced either housing or food insecurity. So we know it's not because they didn't take AP chemistry with us in K-12, or they didn't take, it's paying for it. And now more than ever, we had another student, we all have these stories, right? And they just don't know that, they didn't get that college knowledge. And he wasn't going to apply. He goes, my parents lost their jobs. I don't think we're going to have money to pay. Well, talking to him, he was going to be, even with his parents working, he was 0 EFC anyways. Yvette's going to give him a blue and gold. He's going to get taken care of. He's got this. And so he just didn't get that. And so I think really having what's your baseline, what's your goal, and I'm actually going to put in the chat another link. Where did you come from? So I always want to say, I don't want it right now. I think our schools sometimes are saying it's the pandemic. And then I said, well, what was your application submission rate last year? I don't know. Well, let me put in the chat right now. This is my go-to favorites. The UCs have a list. You can historically see how many students have submitted to a UC campus by demographics for the last 10 years. How many transfers? Use this data to drive so that you can really start to see a comparison. And I would say the last piece, if you do not have a National Student Clearinghouse account, student tracker, then you're assuming they're going to college. You're taking the self-reported data. We have National Student Clearinghouse tracker for all 23 of our school districts. Every high school, we track our students where they go to college up to 7 years after they leave us. It's about $455 this year. I know they're raising their prices for next year. I will have a car wash to make sure we have these accounts, because it's so important for us to say, what's the return on investment for all the work we just did? But I'll drop in my go-to baseline. So if you don't know your baseline data of how many students applied in your from that high school, from that region, or from that county, you have to start there.
Thank you. Awesome. Alison, similar, if you can name one metric that you feel that folks might not be tracking, what should it be, and how would you encourage them to track it and use it?
Sure. So for us, this is a great question, and I talked with our team about this to try to identify what would be the metric. And really, after a long conversation, for us, it really boiled down to the time and the type of modality that we use as we're advising students and families. I think what's really interesting when you have the opportunity to track exactly what it is as college access professionals that we're providing and supporting students with, you get a really good sense of, is it in person? Is it virtual? Is it via texting? Are they questions about college advising, or are they questions about all the other things that allow them to even think about college? So I know that our field does, about probably, in talking with colleagues about, at this point, it's about 20% of college counseling time and maybe 80% of life counseling time. And just really being able to document in a deeper level how our practice works, I think is a really interesting metric. We saw this evidenced in some work that we're doing of placing college counselors on public housing sites. And as a result of being a federally funded program, we had to track this metric. And it was really illuminating to see what are the things that actually lead to student action and student progression along that pipeline. And while I think a lot of times we think that we're documenting those interactions and modalities with detail, it's not until you're asked to actually measure minutes and measure the types of conversations that you're having. And I don't suggest that anybody go through a rigorous federal grant to have to, get down to that granular level, but I do think it merits a conversation across the field about what is it really that we're doing with students and families that is taking that student family to the next level. So that's a metric. It might be tracked by a lot of folks, but I think we just putting a little bit more fine-tuned detail behind it could tell us a lot about the value add of what college access and success professionals do to advance equity in education.
Wonderful. And lastly, Yvette, what metric do you feel folks should be tracking, and how can we fix that?
Sure. So many of you, especially those of you in California, if you're not concerned about A through G completion, you should. We know that in the pandemic, students they've lost so much. And that continual progress on A through G is going to be even more important as universities move away from standardized tests, which the University of California did in May of this year. So let me talk about the role of policy. So underneath all of the work that you're doing, there's a bunch of academic policy that's governing student access. And when policy is created, it often, despite its great intentions, has some unintended consequences. So many years ago, the university wanted to be sure that students knew where they stood when it came to A through G eligibility and UC and CSU eligibility. So we created a tool for A through G based on our course management portal called the Transcript Evaluation Service. And it's actually the underlying algorithmic structure for the California College Guidance Initiative as well, CCGI. We built this tool so that we could help students and families and counselors know every year for every student in every grade where they stood in A through G. But we've also found in recent years that this data has enormous value when identifying system-wide barriers for A through G access and for informing policy development. So you're probably all familiar with the next generation science standards, and you might also be familiar with an interest from the university's faculty to increase the number of science courses that students are required to take from 2 years required, 3 optional, to 3 years required in order to help more students achieve next generation science standards, et cetera. Well, we looked at that change and we looked at the original data, which was really based on students who had applied to and been accepted to the university. And what the data said was most of the students who applied to the university actually had 3 years of science. So doesn't it make sense just to make that a requirement? Well, we said, but wait a second. The students who apply to the university are not the universe of students who are going to be eligible or who are trying to be eligible. So you can't make a decision about a requirement that's around eligibility based on who applies to the university. So we partnered with the Public Policy Institute of California to look at the transcript data we had, hundreds of thousands of transcript records going back over time, to look at the trajectories, the patterns of students who were entering into the A through G course pattern. And what we found was that it's a heavy lift from 1 science course to 2, and it's an even heavier lift for 2 to 3, and that's primarily an impact on Black, Brown, Latinx, and boys. So we were able to use this data to show how, despite the good intentions, to add a requirement was going to be a heavy lift for schools. It was going to be a really, really heavy lift for students, and that it wasn't going to necessarily change who applied to UC. And to their credit, our faculty looked at that, and you don't see a 3-year requirement for science for A through G. So data is really important. And I think for professionals in this field, it's equally important to understand how policy gets made and to advocate for policies that are equitable and inclusive of all students.
Wonderful. And Dr. Gullatt, forgive me for not using your title. You think of all weeks, my notes would be a little tight.
Right? I mean, my colleagues who are on this call will say, oh my goodness, Yvette never uses her title. But I realize that my title is important for others.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that we're...
No, you're fine.
Awesome. Okay, last question, not last question, sorry, third question. And this is a big one. What have we learned in 2020, right? What have we learned in 2020 and what are we planning to do differently in 2021? And I'll start with Alison.
Wonderful. And I love that light behind you, Khafre. It's just great. Beaming hope for 2021.
Yes.
Oh, we've learned, a tremendous amount. I mean, I think the last 9 months have challenged us in, unimaginable ways. I think we've become more empathic, more thoughtful, more intentional about the services we provide to students and families. And I think it's just really underscored that we cannot do this work alone, that there are ample opportunities to work with each other, to work across sectors, to work with higher ed, to work with CSAC. Just there is so much opportunity right now. And I think, really in 2020, like probably most everybody on the line, I mean, it was really an all hands on deck. How do we support our students? And we will continue to do that. And it's essential to do that. At the same time, I think what we've also learned is that the folks helping students really need to also be supported, and the organizations helping students need to be supported. And I think all of us have backburnered some of our, personal needs to be able to advance and support those students. But in order to sustain this in the long term, because what 2020 has taught us is that you never know when the end of the pandemic will be. So, we're not running a sprint. This is not a 400-yard dash. This is a marathon. And in order to be able to make it to that finish line, 26.1 miles down the road, we're going to need a college access and success field that is strong, that has the funding that it needs to persist, that has the staff that is rested and ready to take on next year's challenges. So while we will continue to put our students first, we also really want to put a huge emphasis on those, what we consider frontline college advising staff. Particularly after seeing the National Student Clearinghouse data in the last couple of weeks, where we're seeing now the impact that we all knew was coming down the pike of having decrease in applications, students starting to make decisions about stepping away from post-secondary education. And we know what happens to our student population when they step away. It's very difficult to get back on track. So 2021 is going to be a year, I think, of really sustaining the college access and success field. And that's just something that we're going to, place a lot of attention to. I'll yield the field to my colleagues, and just wanted to say, yes, Dr. Gullatt, policy advocacy is critical. I think the work that all of us do individually with students is really, really important, but there are so many students that don't have the benefit of being part of our programs, and we really need to clear the path for all students. So know that you have colleagues that stand behind you in that advocacy work.
Amazing. All right, Catalina.
I would say, and I hope you guys put tons of, as you can see, very data driven. If you can't measure it, we shouldn't be doing it. So we need to be outcome driven. And I'm going to say for two pieces, and I know it's not part of the question. One of the reasons is budgets are going to get tight. Funding mechanisms, we're going to have to really show the return on investment for everything we're doing. And I think that's important that we think, and then not all the data has to be necessarily college applications. It could be outcome data in terms, not outcome data, but perception data about students. How did you feel before the training we provided? How did you feel after the training we provided? That is powerful data, like Alison mentioned as well, but we all are gonna have to really be able to prove why should people, external partners, nonprofits, the state continue to invest in these programs and these services if we can show what we're producing, right? So I think what we've learned in 2020 is our students are resilient. I know we're dealing with, there's mental health, and we're dealing with a lot of other basic needs, and we're trying to triage that, but they're so resilient, and don't count them out. And I think we have to start getting into places, and I can't agree more about the policy piece. When the data came out for Student Tracker, it was kind of like, it's enrollment's down and colleges have to be worried. No. The whole community, the whole state of California has to be worried. These are systems, ecosystems. So an example of, I lose 1,000 students that aren't going to community college in my county. Those are 1,000 students that are probably on bringing Pell Grant money. They're maybe, if they can't find a job, are they getting in trouble? My students the students in Riverside County, over 70% of them are low income, extreme low income. I'm doing FAFSAs that are $15,000, $16,000 a year income by parents. Where am I setting them up, right? What's going to happen to them? We're doing so hard as a state to close our prisons, reduce prison population. I'm afraid if I don't get them engaged, and they're not, idle mind is not always, it's not a good thing. And those are those things, if they're not enrolled in community college, if they're not being challenged, or they don't have something to do and no job to go to, what will they get into? What will happen? What will they resort to, right? So when we talk about this, it's not just like, oh, we got to help UCR get numbers. No. We have to help our entire county, because what will they do if not this? Right. And so I think continuing those, that this is going to affect not just communities, juvenile felony arrest rates, it's going to affect systems, financial implications. When we get more students going to community college and UCR, we get federal funding, we get state funding that go into your communities. So however you can involve your mayors and your community partners, your assembly members, to understand that this isn't just a higher ed. And I think ultimately, really trying to get, I'm going to speak for, as in not only Student Aid Commission, but just in my role in the county, we've spent 13 plus years with these students. And I think now what I've learned in 2020 moving forward is it can't just be, here you go, you know, Emily Ingleshot, UC Riverside. I give you all the applications, I give you all the students. I need to own them. And I need to help our community college. Those were my students 2 or 3 years ago. It's not just we have to work together. It's not just they're your students now. And I think in K-12, we have to own, we just have these kids for 13 years. I'm gonna call it a day and just say, here you go. We have to partner. So I think it was so powerful when we phone banked, and I'm gonna put in the chat, we did surveys because we did get that perception data. We wanted to hear from the students, like, why haven't you submitted yet? What were some of your barriers? So we did a community college student survey. So when we phone banked, we asked them these questions, and then we also got them set up to do an application workshop. And we took this data to then say, okay, how do we improve our support systems? I'll put the surveys in the chat so you guys can use them, take them, add to them. But I think that was powerful. But we phone bank transfer students. So we had K-12 leaders phone banking transfer students that haven't been with us in 2 to 3 years. And that's what we're going to have. We all have to help each other. It's not a K-12 higher ed problem if we're really going to attack those drops that we just seen.
That's illuminating. And Dr. Yvette Gullatt.
Sure. So I want to echo Alison and Catalina that our students have been amazing. But I also want to remind us that the programs we run, the work that we do for universities, this is our seed corn, right? And like you, we have to be strong, resilient, and persistent to not allow institutions to eat its seed corn. The work that we do is going to be so much more important. I would also level a challenge. I know everyone is really busy, but universities are very different in and post-pandemic than they were, gosh, January of this year. And I think it is incumbent upon all of us to challenge universities to recover with equity, and to help yourselves, help your students ask different questions of institutions so that your students are going to places that can really support them. We've learned in pandemic that any student can be a vulnerable student, but the students who are already marginalized are incredibly vulnerable. And any institution that does not have you can't see, find out, or get information about how it is recovering with equity is not an institution that you would want your students to go to. I think we can demand more of institutions in and post-pandemic than we've ever been able to before. Our students deserve institutions that have transformed and that will transform to serve them so that they belong, and not so much institutions that are going to continue to maintain the status quo. I'm not always proud of the University of California, but I've been really proud of the University of California this year. The decision our regents made in May to decide that we were not going to use a test that didn't measure the academic preparation of students in their classrooms was monumental. The investment that the state and the university has made to ensure that our basic needs programs were essential first responders, to help our students both decamp from college, from their dorms, but also to get services and support wherever they were at home. The campus's focus on ensuring testing and different modes of instruction. I think that's a recovery with equity that we can be proud of, even though we've got a long way to go. And I think it's the kind of thing that college access and success professionals are in the best position to help students, their families, other counselors know and navigate for students. So I just want to thank you all for the work. It has been an extraordinary year, and I don't know what institutions would do without you. We saw record numbers of applicants this year, including increases in our underrepresented student populations. It was because of the work that you do, but it was also because of the equity focus that leadership at the university has applied and will continue to apply for our student success. So thank you all so very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that kind of leads into the next question is like, as we go into 2021, what should be our priority as colleges as college access and success organizations and professionals? What's the priority? What's the focus for students and increasing their access to college? And oh, sorry, Catalina, can you start with that?
You're on mute.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Got it. Okay. You know, I think kind of what I mentioned earlier, I think we have to have solid plans with outcomes and that follow through with students. I think they're going to need more follow through than they've ever needed before of support. So it's like you said, if we can get the FAFSA done and we can get one college app done, and it's kind of like these, we do these 4 things, they're more likely to persist and not have summer melt. I think these are new rules, and I think we're going to need to really spend more time building different types of either, whether it's a partnership, it's training to handhold our students even further than we've ever had before. And I think it's going to take more building, like, you know, as we're working with students right now. So if you're doing a FAFSA, if you haven't done a community college app, you're doing your community college app. Like, we're already thinking ahead. Okay, what do we need to take care of every time we have a moment with the student, because they get tired of the Zoom too. They're in school all day. I think those are going to be key. And I think another thing is, I mean, just shifting how you do business. You know, before, I'm sure I remember when you're at the school campus, it's hard to get pulled out of class, right? They won't let you. Now you cannot take them during their synchronous time. And so a lot of our programs are having to realize, hey, I think we're going to shift our start times from 1 to 8 o'clock or 2 to, they're going to have to switch how they do business, because that traditional model is not working for the school districts, and they don't want their students missing out of class. And so I think just thinking differently on you know, you can't take what you've always done and make it work in this virtual environment. It's like it's a whole new game. But really, I think our students more than ever, and we're seeing that data with 20 to 30% decreases in college enrollment, really making sure, understanding what is your decrease, and not just say, you know, the state data says this, or the national data says this. What does your data say? Because that's going to be key to know your data. You need to be able to speak to, I'm waiting for my reports any day to say, okay, this is where it dropped in the Coachella Valley. This is where are we going to need to put our help and our supports in? So I just start thinking proactively of all the systemic things our students are going to need, like something as simple, and they were awesome to help us. Just a lot of you probably experienced that repackaging of financial aid. I mean, that some of our campuses, it had to repackage financial aid a few times for students. That was all new to us. I was like, okay, what repackaging? What does that mean? What? And we had to learn quickly or try to help our students navigate. So just start thinking ahead of anything. Anytime we have a student, we have them on, what are the checklists of things we want to ensure they receive? Because the system is just not there right now in all of our schools.
Next, Dr. Gullatt, what should be the priority as college access and success organizations and professionals?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Catalina has said. Being data centered is going to be really, really important. Using the data that you have to help students on their pathway. Use transcript data. We have evaluated transcript data that can help you, save you time so that you can serve more students. I think the other thing is to help students have a holistic view of what's in front of them. You know, high school students, you know, college is college, and too often our students who are planning to transfer get left behind because they're not going to a 4-year, and decisions are being made by them and for them that actually take them out of the realm of possibility for them to transfer to a 4-year within a reasonable amount of time. So really taking that holistic view of a student, whether they take a 2+2 or a 4-year, it's all college, and how to help them put the pieces of that together. I think your ongoing advocacy for the importance of this work is going to be more important than ever, because these are the kinds of things that people think are easy to, well, we don't need to do outreach. We don't need to do admissions. We have enough applications. There's counselors in schools, and we know that that's not true. And learning from each other about how to be creative. There are just way too many Zoom webinars and Zoom classes, and the students are exhausted and they can't keep track of the information. So being as creative as you can, and you all have such good ideas about how to actually serve students in this space. So data, compassion, and creativity, I think, are going to be the priorities for us for the next several years.
Wonderful. And lastly, Alison, what are the 2021 priorities?
Well, I couldn't agree more with Catalina and Dr. Gullatt's comments, so I won't reiterate those. But I guess I just really did want to emphasize that college access and success organizations are often the bridge between the K through 12 and higher ed systems. And we know that there is a lot of room for improvement in our state of articulating that so that it truly is a pipeline. And I think when COVID hit as well, we saw more than ever, we had school districts contacting us, can you advise our students? We had higher ed admissions officers saying, we really want access to your students for the, and so I think we were being pushed and pulled in multiple directions. But I think this signals to us that there is a critical role that we as college access and success organizations can play in better partnering with our higher ed colleagues and really being able to try to figure out what are those barriers that stand in the way for our students to enroll, for our students to persist, for our students to be able to have more simplified financial aid processes. The verification process is the bane of our existence, oftentimes. So, I just think, I think 2021 calls us to step into some of that, whether it's institutional practices that we're influencing in our own regions, or if it's state and federal practices that we have a lot to say about how these things could operate more efficiently, effectively, and our students even more so. So yeah, I'll just end with that.
Wonderful. Thank you to our incredible panel. Why wasn't all this here when I was trying to go through college? Man, if I could only, change time a bit. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this conversation and hope to engage in future events or activities with the coalition who organized the panel, please check out the Contact Us forum link in the chat and let us know that you want to get involved. That's just a really easy way to get involved with us. And yeah, wonderful panel. We packed a lot into our first hour together, and now it's time for y'all to connect with each other. So just a reminder that if you're enjoying the event, just a reminder, make sure to go to the contact form if you want to get involved. Building connection communities and growing our professional networks is nourishing to us as individuals, but it also strengthens us as a collective and increases our impact. And with that in mind, we've built in time for networking breakout sessions that will focus on how to take what we've heard today and move forward with renewed energy, focus, and collective impact in 2021. So we've got 6 breakouts, and they are breakout number 1, CEOs, executive directors, and leadership, leading through COVID-19 in times of uncertainty. And the facilitator is Melissa Fries, executive director of CAP, a program Making Waves Foundation. Breakout 2, policy and advocacy, strengthening our collective voice to improve advocacy. Facilitator Sabeda Viveros Walton. And we don't have 1, but 2 breakout groups for direct service and program coordination, folks. Breakout 3 is direct service and program coordination, college access and completion professionals, investing in yourself and your career. Facilitators Tiana Corona, Educational Partnerships Manager, and Marcelo Avalos, College Completion Advising Manager of Oakland Promise. Breakout number 4, Direct Service and Program Coordination, College Access and Completion Professionals, taking care of yourself while taking care of others. Facilitator Adelina Tancioco, Spiritual Life Coach and Inspirational Speaker from Surrendered Healing. Breakout 5, Development and Fundraising, community-centric funding during times of uncertainty. Facilitator is Maribel Rodriguez, Director of Development from Richmond Promise. Shout out Richmond. And breakout number 6, Data and Operations. Decide with data and act with conviction. And that's facilitator for this is John Tamrit, Partnership and College Financial Coach, Money Think. And you'll be placed in the breakout sessions that you signed up for when you registered. But if you feel like you want to move around during the breakout, you can either come back to the main room and ask to be reassigned, or you can move yourself as long as you're using version 5.3 or higher of Zoom. We'll come back together at 5:30 for a share out. and a raffle, so don't miss it. And we have lots of prizes. Mayor, feel free to break everybody out, and good luck and have fun, everybody.
Thank you so much, Khafre. All right, I'm opening out the breakout rooms. Facilitators, you'll be able to start as soon as you're in there. Folks are assigned, starting it now. All right, we should have everybody back with us today. We hope you enjoyed your breakouts. Now's time for sharing out. So why don't we just go in order of the actual breakouts as we had them listed. So let's go ahead and start with breakout number 1. Melissa, if you're with us, happy to have you share out.
All right. I had a fantastic group of leaders who are doing a job that can sometimes be lonely. And there's a lot of worry about their organization, about their teams, about the students that they're serving. And I think that was really great to hear is the theme of recover with equity, and a big theme of how do we work together and share scarce resources and focus more on collaboration and support. And I think that's what everybody was looking for is this connection. So we got each other's email address, and we're going to connect in the future and into 2021 to really be a support source for each other, because the hope comes from connection. And so that is kind of, people talked about what they're doing to relieve stress and kind of leaning in and letting things happen, celebrating, and a real focus, what I loved was on gratitude for really thinking of, where we were maybe earlier in our lives, students that we're serving, and all we have to really be grateful for. Somebody said, I didn't get a pay cut and I didn't lose my job. And sometimes those are the things that carry us forward in the next day. So I really enjoyed working with my group and focusing on our future networking. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Spada.
Yeah, we had a conversation around data, specifically around A through G. What does that mean? We talked a little bit about the advocacy around our cradle to career data system that can help us better track outcomes for students. We also reflected on the comment from the panel on that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and how are we stepping back and reevaluating and pausing and kind of changing our approach. We talked a lot about sharing resources. I know that Laura over from TICAS is going to be, she got a whole bunch of contact information about folks that wanted to get really involved around the verification process. We talked about the work of the National College Access Network. And yeah, I think we will be creating a Padlet, and I kept sharing the Padlet, which I'll share again in our big group for people to drop in information, but I'll be compiling a list of the resources, coalitions, organizations that do policy and advocacy work, and it'll be on the Padlet for everyone that wasn't able to attend the session to be able to have that information.
That is so awesome, Spada. And to all of our facilitators, if you have any links that you want to make sure get shared out to the group, please just make sure to email Abby and I after the event. Awesome. Tiana or Marcelo, would you like to report out?
Yeah, so my group, or me and Marcelo's group, we were really focusing on a theme of investing in yourself and career. And so this looked like also taking a reflection on what our boundaries look like. And, it was a common theme of like, what are boundaries and readjusting them daily, constantly. And it's a work in progress. And so it was great to share. We shared a lot of resources around leveraging communication, different communication channels that folks are using with students. So things like Calendly, Google Voice, Line 2, to reach our students on multiple different levels outside of emails, because we're not in person anymore. We got to get creative. So that was a big thing. Moving forward, some folks, we talked about a focused Slack channel, collaborative training. So going in on trainings, sometimes they're out of our PD budget. So collaborating with another group and then getting opportunity to talk about what we learned in that and how it relates to our own personal orgs, and then sharing best practices on, you know, the impacts, the real, very real impacts of distance learning and how we move forward. So that's what we talked about. Marcelo, did you want to add anything?
No, you said it all.
All right.
Also, we asked everyone if you would like to connect with someone just to share your LinkedIn. So I'm just wanted to open up with everyone in here. So, you know, if you want to connect with people, just drop your LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcelo. Adelina, would you like to go next?
Sure. So ours was, you know, caring for yourself, self-care, for your, you know, self-care for yourself. So what we did first was make acronyms for self-care. And it was really fun. One that I'll share with you all is by Christina. It's stepping away, eat a snack, let go, fitness, that's self, and then care for you, artsy, rejuvenate, enjoy time with family. Right. And so the invitation is to create something that you'll remember, that you can come back to. Like, okay, am I caring for myself? Let me check in with, you know, with all these different things that I could be doing. What would I love to do? And then the invitation was, okay, if you were your best friend, you know, what would your best friend say to you to help you care for yourself more? Right? Because so often as caretakers, we put ourselves on the back burner. And so caring for ourselves the way we would care for our loved ones. So what would our best friends say? What would our loved ones tell us? And so many of the responses was to take a break. It's okay. You're enough. You got this. Right? And then the invitation was to share and really connect with what is a promise that you're willing to make to up-level your self-care by the end of the year. What's one thing that you'd be willing to do by the end of the year to just love on yourself, right? And then the invitation was to then find an accountability partner in the space, because accountability is key. And we all know this, right? You all know this as the work that you do with your students, is accountability makes things really happen. And so holding each other accountable for our own self-care practices. It was a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for joining that intimate breakout.
Thank you so much, Maribel. And we're so glad we were able to have such a comprehensive set of topics, and that self-care made it into it, especially as we're closing out for the holiday. I hope you all will really turn off during your holiday breaks. All right, Maribel, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you. We had a really great, small, intimate group as well. And our focus really was around what we have been doing as far as like fundraising in regards to the pandemic, but our conversation turned into what does like fundraising look like as far as it being more of a social justice perspective as opposed to a charity perspective, and how do we move forward as a collective and use services in our partners within our current areas to make sure that we are benefiting our communities and not just like a particular organization or a particular group, because we are in this kind of space together. And also like part of what we did in our group was just kind of reflecting on like what the pandemic has brought for us as professionals and kind of how we want to grow in the future. And just realizing like, you know, there's a lot of opportunity, but it's also very kind of like difficult to kind of do this work unless you find community. So creating community is key to this work, and just reassuring that we can do this even if there is, you know, the world is upside down, because we have our communities' well-being at the forefront.
I think all of us couldn't agree with you more, Maribel. Having like at most about 120 on this call today and still 70 after 5 o'clock on a Wednesday evening before the holidays shows that I think we are all in agreement that community needs to happen. And I hope you all are tracking each other's LinkedIns in the chat. I will not be putting LinkedIns in the follow-up message, just to be clear on what I am putting as far as links. So please share your LinkedIns with each other, but I'll be sharing more of those high-level links in the follow-up emails. So to close us out, John, would you like to share on the data group?
Sure, yeah, thanks. Yeah, within the data group, we were just coalescing on the aspect of all the things that panels were discussing, the importance of data and how to collecting it together, right? More even so is just redefining what we think success looks like for our students. And a lot of it just being together, coming together, making sure we're supporting our students to not only reach college, but stay there and graduate throughout. And then we talked about some of the best practices that are currently being used. Again, utilizing whether spreadsheets, Google Suites to share documents, not only to the students and families, but other accessible organizations who are doing similar work as you. And that is also creating opportunities for collaboration and not having to duplicate work. And some things that came up as well is just seeing some of the fears that some of the families have and being able to communicate with them to de-stress them within those situations. And being able to track where students are applying, whether if they have free waiver or not, so that you can provide the support that's needed for them, being the next steps. And another example is sharing reports to families on A through G and the relevance that it has for that student directly, so they can be better prepared in meeting those metrics and providing that information in a timely manner. Another aspect is also creating more data share agreements within your network to further student success outcomes, partnering with school districts, and building those partnerships and relationships much more, and utilizing tools like CCGI to track college applications or web grant reports, and how to effectively leverage them in pursuing your student success metrics moving forward.
Thank you so much to all our facilitators. Sending it back to you, Khafre.
Okay, awesome. So now it's my job to introduce the community board, all right? We've set up a community board where folks can share upcoming events and opportunities. This is posted at https://padlet.com, NorCal Promise Coalition. Board will remain live until January 31st. So it's a resource. Check it out. Everyone here is invited to participate. You'll receive the link again as a follow-up, and it'll be accessible on the NCCPC website by next week.
And amazingly, we're kind of ahead of schedule. In case anyone on the events committee would like to say anything to the audience before we start getting ready to have Khafre and Adelina close us out.
I just want to thank everybody for coming, for your participation, and for, you know, like Mayor said, it's after 4, after 5 on a Wednesday, getting close to the holiday break, and just to see such a great level of engagement and participation is wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just echo. This is Jessie from Richmond Promise. Want to just give a big shout out and appreciation to everyone who's here, and especially our panelists and Mayor. I mean, you are a Wonder Woman, so thank you so much for just everybody who was involved in bringing us together. I was just chatting Mayor about, and I was like, you know what? I am really inspired about the power of virtual events after being here. So thank you, and this filled up my cup. So.
Definitely have to echo a big shout out to Mayor for putting this together and creating the vision that led to tonight. So really appreciate you all being here. And I think the expertise and the drive and just the values and mission in this room are inspiring. So happy to have you all here and so happy to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, everybody, and appreciate all the affirmations that came in through the polls. So it sounds like we better do something like this again next year with 98% of votes. Kevin and the Bay Area CSN and I, on behalf of the Northern California College Promise Coalition, look forward to reaching out with folks who said in the polls that they'd like to get more involved. So thank you so much. All right, Kevin. All right, Khafre, I think we're getting ready to close things out.
Sorry, and I think what better way to do so than to bring up Adelina right now to close us out with a mindfulness exercise. All right, so come on back in.
Thank you. All right, really excited. Like everyone said, there's so much energy here. And we're gonna ground that. It's important to ground it. A lot came up, and then when you kind of like go back into like the real world, you could feel kind of raw, like, oh my God, I just took in all this information. And so you just want to reground that. So to do that, I'm going to introduce, or maybe you all already know, but I'm going to share with you a Filipino traditional practice, which is called Hilot. Hilot is a healing practice in the Philippines. And we all have healing hands. So we just go ahead and rub your healing hands together. Really connecting to that energy. All right, and I'm doing a couple of things just so you know, I'm combining a few different practices here. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to clear our practices and keep rubbing your hands, y'all. Yep, we're still doing that. We're going to clear space and then we're going to replace what we've cleared. Okay. All right. So placing your hands on your forehead right here. Just really seeing, not imagining, because it's really happening, seeing all the energy that doesn't serve you, all the leftover thoughts or fears or doubts or anything that came up for you going into your hands. So I'm going to flick that off to the right side. Nice. You're going to do that again. There's a power in 3. Flick that off. And one more time. Nice. All right. Now you're going to do the same thing with your heart. Anything that's weighing on your heart that doesn't serve you. This is a practice I adapted from also from another healer in the Philippines, Alma healing, where you clear it out. Anything that doesn't belong on your heart. We're not made to carry anything other than joy. So flick that off to the right side where it could be transformed back into love, back into useful energy through Mother Earth. One more time. Well, that was the second time, so one more time here. And this is a practice you can do anytime when you're feeling heavy, when you're feeling burnt out. It's because you're carrying that which is not yours to carry. All right. Now you're going to do the same thing with your legs. Okay. So placing your hands on your legs here. Any actions, anything that you've done that you want to just let go of and forgive yourself for. You're flicking that off to the right. 2 more times. Letting that energy come into your hands. Flicking it off. One last time here, and then we're going to replace it, y'all. We're going to replace it. Bring your hands to your legs. Letting that energy that no longer serves you come back into your hands. Bringing it back to Mother Earth by flicking it off to the side. All right. So whenever we clear, and you can apply for anything. And if you're going to let go of one habit, you need to replace it with something more healthy. Otherwise, the default thinking will replace it and you're just going to do the same thing. So we just cleared your mind, you cleared your heart, you cleared your legs. If you don't replace it with something, the same thing, you're going to just put those negative thoughts back in, the heaviness back in, and the regret of what you've done back in. So you want to replace it. So bring your hands to your palm to your forehead. Sending yourself some love here. What is one thought that you're walking away from this experience with, that you're going to allow yourself to fill that space with? So a thought that's expansive, a thought that's energizing, a thought that's life-giving. And go ahead and say it aloud. I believe everyone's on mute, so go ahead and say it aloud because you want your body to feel it. Nice. And bring your hands to your heart. What is one feeling that you want to fill your body with? What is one feeling that you're taking away once again from this experience? Nice. And now bring your hands to your legs. What is one action that you want to take after hearing and learning and connecting in this space? Beautiful. All right. So bring your hands out and up, taking a deep breath, and down your center line. I am right where I need to be. There is nothing else I need to do. I am perfect, I am whole, and I am complete. And so it is.
Awesome. Awesome. That is wonderful. I feel centered. I feel balanced. And I feel regrounded. Thank you, Adelina. Thank you again for joining us with that mindfulness exercise. And thank you again to Northern California College Promise Coalition and the Bay Area College Success Network for collaborating to put on this amazing event for us, y'all. Thank you to Mayor. Thank you, Abby, our event lead. Shout out to Kevin. Thank you everyone for coming, and stay tuned for a follow-up email with a link to the recording of this event. Yeah, we recorded it. The survey, the community board where you can put resources and reconnect with people, and more. So have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great rest of your 2020, and looking forward to 2021, y'all. Thank you so much.